and welcome to the MoxStars podcast. I am one of your hosts, Evan Kunai, and I'm here with my great friend, my best friend, Jordan Garcia.
What's up, dog? You're my best friend, too.
Oh,
What up? No,
I didn't think I'd be crying on the
We're
podcast.
5 seconds in. You got to tighten it up.
Today we're talking about a few things.
Well, notably, we got to shout out the fact that we're missing a homie.
Ooh, Ritter. Ritter's not with us today. A few scheduling conflicts.
I love saying that he's not with us. Usually because he's on vacation, and he's not.
Right. His spirit is always with us in our heart forever, always will be.
Amen.
But he is just in a different location on the planet Earth.
He's a busy boy, and we're all busy boys. So, we're recording this on the off day.
Yes. And it is so freaking hot.
It is the first thing I want to talk about today. Very magic related. It's hot as fuck right now. So yeah, bear with us. Let's get into it. What are we talking about today?
Well, before we talk about anything at all, if you would like to support the show, you can do so by, one, joining our Poppin' Discord.
Dude, it is popping off.
You can find the description,
100%.
The link in the description below. Or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the thumbs up, like the video, subscribe there, and hit the bell for more notifications and get alerts for when the episodes do drop. Or you can find us on all major podcasting platforms where you can subscribe to us there, and be sure to leave a rating for the show on the podcast platform of your choice.
Please.
We also have a link tree in the description, which is a really nifty tool.
It's so nifty, y'all.
Yeah. It directs you to every single social media platform that we have as a podcast.
It's like every link in one link. It's actually crazy.
That's my brain.
Exploding.
All right, on to today's topics.
Yeah, dog, what are we talking about?
We have a couple pregame actions.
Oh.
One in particular that has
Oh.
been raising a bit of discussion in the Discord channel. And
my
we also
phenomenon.
have our main topic, which is Thank You Next,
Yes.
which is where we're going to be talking about cards that have been praised for so long, and we're going to raise a little bit of controversy and discuss whether or not they're outdated and they're ready to be shipped off into the sunset.
We're coming for some top tier staples. And by top tier, I mean top tier garbage.
I've got 3 sticky notes here with a list of cards on every single
Don't
one
even
of them.
challenge this man on his sticky notes.
But before that, pregame actions? Anyone?
Pre-game actions. I pass. I'm going priority.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
going first.
Yeah. I'm second in turn order. So I do have a pregame action. We're talking about
Such fucking dorks. Go ahead.
the cEDH decklist database.
Yeah.
And
A lot of contention. I'm kind of surprised about how much chatter.
it does generate a lot of chatter because every player out there has an opinion, right? Which you're more than entitled to. And it just makes for a lot of controversy because you have seen these decks maybe out in the wild, or maybe you haven't seen them out in the wild, and you get your cheeks clapped by a few decks and you're like, why is this not on the decklist database? Like when I built Zakama, why the fuck was that not on the decklist database? That shit was competitive as fuck.
Hey, sometimes getting your cheese claps is not always the worst thing, right? Happy Pride Month.
Okay. Yes. Happy Pride Month. But there are a few decks on the on the decklist database
Just straight faced him the whole way.
that may or may not belong there. And so we just want to have this discussion to like really lay it out there flat. Like, are there like, leave your comments down like on the YouTube channel. Let us know what you guys think too. But like, we're going to get into it. And there are just a few decks on there that don't belong anymore, right? The metas have shifted, and this is like an attempt, like the decklist database is an attempt to sort of build a hub where all of these decks from all around the world, all around the nation exist. So it's really hard to get a clear picture of any particular meta where, you can particularly say that this deck list is the peak version, or this deck list is a great version or a good guiding margins. They're guiding margins for how you should build, like Winota, or like in particular the Sakushima Kodama list or whatever. Like that's
People
one.
rallying against that a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like I do believe that any deck can be competitive, and what necessarily like dictates what makes this list and what does not. Right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we already have cEDH enchantments as a list on here, right? Like that's a pretty brand new card. Yes, I think it's a viable strategy, but it's definitely not like a usual one, a normal one that we're used to seeing, right? So how are we saying already within 6 months of this card being printed, like this is now a meta tier deck?
Oh, you're talking about Enchantress cEDH?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
longer than 6 months.
Yeah, it's been a while, but
I have no concept of time.
Yeah, so cEDH is whenever you cast an enchantment, you can draw, or you may draw a card and gain 1 life. So, I think
like I see why it's good. I'm not coming.
Right.
I'm not coming for the deck, but I'm
Right,
just like, it doesn't need to be on this database where we're like, we are net decking like essentially the meta of the every color spectrum. Like, is that really like?
I mean,
top tier? Like, I don't know. Like,
I've literally never played against a cEDH list. It doesn't mean they don't exist, and it doesn't mean that they haven't topped or been on a top 16 like in a major tournament. But I have seen about 29 Kenrith lists like at a single tournament,
right,
with not a single cEDH or not a single Toxrill or not a single, this or that. So like it's really hard to like scroll through this list and really kind of give it all of the credibility in the world.
I mean, yeah, bro, you go on here and there are 6 different Kenrith lists just in this cEDH database. So it's like the argument, like, I don't know, I don't know what your opinion is on it, and I'm not necessarily making a stance on it, but it's just like there is the big argument of it's a great resource for new people getting into this format, right? And it's just like, to me, it can be a little overwhelming looking at this stuff and like being like, okay, so cEDH is viable. I remember that from being a cash dude, but like I like Sarah Sanctum, that's a fun card. But then I get into Kenrith and I don't understand why there are 7 iterations of Kenrith, and like.
I mean, because it has a million directions. There should be 49 or more iterations of Kenrith, right?
But like, yeah, but how does it goes to, I guess, the concept of like who is curating the database and how do they envision
exactly
what the database represents.
Right. So I think of this, I'm going to make the comparison. Y'all can agree or disagree. It's very similar, like you said, in the way that this is a great place for people getting into cEDH to start, or to get into competitive Magic to start and just kind of look over a few lists and get a good idea of what like strategies and combos exist. And maybe that's what this tool is for. But I liken it to EDH Rec in the same way. It's where like if a brand new person comes to Magic, I'm an experienced player. Like I don't need EDH Rec to go on and like build a list or like to copy a list and print it off and test it out. And now that I've been playing cEDH enough, it's like I don't need these lists to tell me exactly what's good, but you can use it as a tool to like come back to and then see like, am I missing something?
Right.
Like, is there like that? I've done it on EDH Rec a few times where like when I was building that dog shit Writhe, deck or whatever.
Nonsense.
It was dog shit and it. But I had to go back to EDH Rec just to be like, are there any cards that I'm just like missing here?
It's helpful to,
or just so obvious that like the Rolodex that is my brain and how I categorize cards, am I just missing something that's very obvious?
That's usually where like I find those little synergy cards that like you've never really heard of it or thought about it that much, but it's like, oh shit, with this ability it just like goes off for some reason.
Yeah, and so like the tool that I'm using now more than anything is the Eminence tournament results website, because like that's actually showing me statistics, it's actually showing me results, and I can like take individual lists crafted by individual players and it shows their nuances, their styles as players, and sometimes they include a primer so you can like look and read and see. But this in particular, while there are some primers, I don't weigh it as, or I don't carry as high of an opinion of that as I do with the Eminence actual tournament results, because I mean the list just doesn't show results. It just leads you to a Moxfield page that
and then it's the Wild West.
There's no numbers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, honestly, I liken it to me being in my like middle school, high school days, and just being like, you get an assignment, right? And I guess even college days, I'll be honest.
You're a college boy now.
I you go like Wikipedia first, like Wikipedia, and then you'll go out from there and get your resources, right? And you'll fine tune. You'll go get the textbook that, you can get a little blurb that gets your teacher the little, oh, good job, you did it.
But don't you fucking dare like use Wikipedia in your reference page.
Right. No, because you're not a moron. You got a couple of fucking D's. But bro, I don't know how I got away with some of that shit. It was wild. But yeah, I mean, it's similar to that concept. I liken this to like Wikipedia, right? Like, don't trust everything you read on the internet, kids.
Oh, totally.
Like great reference point, like Evan said. Great. I reference it back all the time. Like literally, I typed in CE and then it autofilled into my thing. So I go onto it plenty. And it's just, we're always brewing, and I always like to compare, like you said, usually I have kind of an angle or something that I've been stewing on for a while in my head, and I kind of have that little package of cards built in my head. Like I know, because that's the synergies and like the little fun stuff that I want to see in the deck. Then it's just like, for me, it's like, all right, well, there's a billion cards that already have to go in the deck. So it's like, I'll throw those in there and then kind of compare. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's something that is synergistic with what I'm trying to do that I missed. Or maybe there's like, oh, fuck, I forgot like, a card I just need to have or something like that,
Right.
Like I forgot the Veil of Summer because I never play green or something like that, but I should probably have Veil of Summer in the deck.
There were, I was building that Kalia list, which is in the Discord server. So join the Discord.
Yeah, we've been brewing up a storm.
I built this Kalia list for our buddy Kyle, and I was rolling through, and I realized I didn't put Enlightened Tutor in. For whatever reason.
Exactly shit like that. Where like, oh, whoopsie.
Oh, there's no room for it now. Like moving on.
Yeah. Honestly, I'll say like especially when I'm doing that kind of like part of the deck refinement process is I love using the compare feature on MoxField. So like that's a great time to go to the cEDH database, grab the most generic fucking, list, whatever it is, and then, copy and paste it, compare it to yours that you've already built, be like, all right, how many cards are different? Like, what am I doing? What are they doing differently? Should I reconsider? And then I like to kind of like toe-to-toe cards and see which side wins.
Now, for, anybody out there who might not know what the compare feature is, can you describe that in detail?
I mean, yeah, so you like compare two decks. So yeah, on MoxField, you just copy the URL of one deck and then go to your deck, or it's even easier if you're comparing your own decks. That sounds funny. You can just like literally go to the compare feature and then like drop down all your deck lists and stuff. It's kind of insane for me because I have over 100, and so it's insane to scroll through. So usually I just copy the URL.
Yeah, lay your decks down side by side.
Yeah,
see which one's
a little bigger.
Yeah,
100%
better is what you meant.
Better. Every deck should be the same size.
Yes, legally speaking. Moving on.
Yes.
I think that sort of like encaptures...
It's Wikipedia for fucking cEDH noobs.
Yeah. I think that sort of like wraps it all up into a nice ties a nice little bow on top. Yeah. So moving on, we are going into our main subject, which is...
Thank you, next.
Thank you. Next!
I wish we could play the song right now, but we'd get sued.
Totally. Ariana would come for our hides. So...
Actually, it doesn't sound that bad.
Jordan sort of said it earlier, and this is a perfect segue into this topic, but when you're building a deck, and this is where this whole argument or this whole conversation stems from, is when you build a deck and you are looking at these particular colors, and they're just cards that have existed in these colors and have been deemed like staples for these colors for so long.
Play it all the time.
That like their auto includes.
Literally, there are even packages in MoxField for, auto include cEDH staples for X color.
Yeah. Which is just nutty to me because you just look at it and you just go, well, some of these have aged out of competition, or the general game has sped up to a certain point where they're no longer viable, or we're just hanging on to like certain cards way longer than we should be.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like stems this conversation. We are going to talk about staples for colors that are either like outdated in their function, in their form. Do they still keep up with the meta, or should we move on from them? Should we be taking them out of our decks? Can they actually be taken out in favor of cards that fit your strategy? Like, I guess.
We talked about synergy all the time.
Better.
It is better. And then on top of that, there are just so many new cards being printed that it's hard to imagine that at some point one card will not, outsize a card that, before was like an auto include.
Yeah.
Because now it's, that 101st card. You got to cut it at some point when it just gets outpaced.
And I think our first one to talk about, and Ritter is going to be so sad that he's not here. And he will probably chime in next week when he's back with us in the recording studio.
Well, spoiler alert, we're talking about Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
We're
going to do
excited.
a set review. But he will definitely chime in on this one. The first card we're going to talk about is green. And you're going to note that a lot of these cards are green. But Sylvan Library.
It's the big one we've been talking about, just you and I also see it the most on our Discord and just on Reddit across the board. We talk about it a lot.
If you're unaware what Sylvan Library is, it's an enchantment for 1 and a green that at the beginning of your draw step, you draw 3 cards, and then you can choose to keep, by paying 4 life, you can choose to keep the additional cards for each of them or whatever. So you can pay up to 8 life to keep 2 additional cards, and you can put them back in any order if you choose not to keep them. So, I don't have the rules text right in front of me, so
something like that. Look it up if you want. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it all the time. Like, sometimes just the investment to wait to the next turn to get to the cards is kind of lame. But you do get to dig 3 deep at the pretty hefty cost of 8 life. That's not nothing in these longer games like we've been talking about with tons of fucking creatures running around.
Literally 20% of your life total.
Yeah. So, you do that 2 upkeeps, 6 cards, 16 life.
Yeah, and it also stimulates this political discussion at the table where once you put Sylvan Library down, you are already chipping away at your life total. And now people understand that when you have Sylvan Library on the battlefield, your life total is cards. Right?
Yeah,
like it translates.
Everybody looks at the black player for it. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, that's a card. And then start swinging it.
Yeah, it's like the same deal as Necropotence. Once you put it down, you pay the life, you refill your hand up to 7 or whatever. Sylvan Library is not nearly as good as that, but it does start to players look around the table and they go, I'm going to punch him real quick because that means he gets probably 1 less card at the end of this game.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just look at how much card draw white has gotten alone. That is just auto includes if you're playing that now.
Yeah, Minus Tirith is great for that land. Coming out with
it's just insane for card draw on a land with no restrictions. Then we have Esper Sentinel, Archivist of Ogma. It's just crazy. Mm-hmm. And Archivist of Ogma is the same fucking mana as Sylvan Library. Esper Sentinel is 1 less mana. Guess what? Those are also both creatures, which is super hard to counter.
Yeah, a lot harder to interact with, and they aren't permanents that
Dockside.
Yeah,
Esper Sentinel.
Exactly. Well, yeah, Esper Sentinel does, but Sylvan Library in particular can go as soon as you cast it and it sits on the field, it has to go all the way around the table before you start generating at least a little bit of value off of it. But by that time, the game can happen so quickly.
Correct.
Right? So if you don't lay the stacks down turn 1 and then you play your Sylvan Library turn 2, there's a good chance that as it goes around the table, someone just drops a Dockside on you before you've even generated value off of the Sylvan Library.
Yeah, it's this kind of card it really makes me think of when I first got into cEDH, which was right after the flash banning, and it was just 4 Thrasios partner decks all sitting at a pod with card draw engines and interaction and fine playing a 2-hour game.
Totally.
They're who can just let me just get my training grounds into Thrasios pass, training grounds Thrasios pass, and do that all over until somebody gets the seedboard muse and that person wins the game.
Totally.
In those games, Sylvan Library is fucking amazing. But it's just a lot of the times you're gonna feel great, I've gotten those 3 cards on the first one, right? I've made a pretty large, if you can make it to that, right? You make a pretty large leap in parity at the table for that turn. But it's a pretty small window where you have to take advantage of it, and I just feel it's not quite enough gas for the investment of both time and mana to get you there, because I just feel you go to that next turn and that red deck, that red black deck is just gonna cut ahead of you.
Totally. There's little nuances this card sort of the closer you look, the worse it gets.
Correct.
Right? And so when you look at it and you're okay, I'm going to pick up these 3. I'm not paying the life. I've got the card I want, right? You have to put 2 back, which means exactly what the next 2 cards are going to be.
We all know how bad a shitty brainstorm feels.
Right. So you look at it and you're like, well, I'm only going to see the third card. I'm going to, like, if those first two cards aren't a shuffle your library effect, or the card you picked up isn't a fetch land or something like that, you know, it's like, yeah, you're going to see those cards again. It doesn't offer you any card advantage. You might as well just be drawing a card.
Which then encourages you to pretty much pay the 8 life every single upkeep.
Exactly. So yeah, there's that little bit of like an internal conflict there where it's like, am I just paying the 4 life and taking 1 and then I see 2 cards next turn? Or am I, you know, hopefully what I am picking up is a fetch land so I can shuffle it and give myself 3 fresh new cards to look at.
Yeah, 100%. And I think...
in which case you're still spending a life to shuffle your library. So
yeah. And the other thing about those other draw engines I was talking about is like, you know, like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, and Esper Sentinel. They all provide a tax effect too. That is like a pseudo stacks element to where people can pay it, but that means you're shutting your turn off. You are playing off curve intentionally.
And there's windows of opportunity with that. Like they don't pay the tax. You draw. I've lost off of not paying a Rhystic Study like tax before. You know, it's like they pick up a Force of Will and then you're like, fuck.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's never just like this is the hard and fast thing, because there's a point where, you know, you need to make sure you're still in this game too. So it's like there are some times where you have to cast into it and sometimes you can't cast into it. And like you need to know when that is. And, you know, different decks play that differently and play that situation out differently.
Yeah. Everyone says don't feed the fish. There's no feeding the Sylvan Library. Like there's only it ingesting you and ingesting your life total. As you get desperate, like later in the game, you're just going to get more and more desperate if you are not breaking parity and you are not starting to at least generate a board state and generate value through that card.
So I would like to take a big leap here, and I'd like to say thank you next to Sylvan Library.
I'm still, well, Ritter would like to say that there is already a card to replace it.
Is it Archivist of Ogma? Because
No.
that's the card I'm suggesting.
It's Miri's Guile.
Miri's Guile is not that good.
It's not amazing, but it does allow you to like rearrange cards and like pick up. You get to look 3 deep off 1 mana, right?
Yes. I mean,
You can shuffle the library, right?
yeah.
You know, it.
I don't think, like, if you're doing something with top deck, I guess, no, I don't think it's that good. Something that needs to actually give you real card advantage, cards in hand is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and ultimately, the reason that I'm so hesitant to say thank you next it's because I am a green player, right? That's who I am at my core.
I'm ready to move on immediately.
Yeah, I know you are.
Cut it out. There's only 4 colors in Magic.
And it's not green. Green is not one of them.
Well, I would just like to, I mean, I know it's obviously not green, but I do think that, like, Archivist of Ogma, like, compare those 2 fucking cards, man. Like, Archivist of Ogma draws a lot of cards.
Actually gains you a life, too.
And it gains you life, and it's flash, and it's creature, and it's all the things. Like, same mana, too. Like, to me, that just feels like a direct upgrade. Like, in cEDH, where we play, you know, 5-color bullshit, like, not worried about colors, you're just worried about card quality. For me, I would cut for that.
Yeah, I'm still looking for that, like, lateral, or not, I don't want a lateral, like, movement in this, for this card, but I do want, like, an upgrade. And I'm still waiting for that in the enchantment slot. Like, I guess that's what I'm looking for, is, like, green's answer to Rhystic Study. Is Sylvan Library supposed to be it? Like, is that just how we see it and how we view it?
Right.
But, I mean, we look at it and we saw Sylvan Library get a reprint most recently with Dominaria Remastered, and we saw the price just plummet.
Yep.
Because it's no longer a necessary piece when people are building decks. And you can go on to TCG Player, and they have great analytics there. You can see the price of a card over the past, you know, for its lifetime. And you can just see that, like, Sylvan Library just steadily just working in a downward trajectory.
Yeah, 2 back-to-back reprints was enough to, like, pretty much kill it.
Yeah. So, all right. That's enough on Sylvan Library. I think that's the one we're probably the most heated and passionate about, but who knows? We're still going through this fucking list.
It's a green card, so it's fucking terrible. Moving on.
I have a big one.
Yeah, you do. What's up?
Gamble.
Gamble. Now we're in my territory.
Yeah.
Now we're in my neck of the woods.
I'm ready to move on from Gamble.
You know what? You know what? Me too. I already cut it from my list before the tournament we went to.
I did too.
Already gone.
Fuck
it.
Well, there were so many times that Gamble, like...
It's a gamble, turns out.
Yeah. It turns out when it's the last, you know, your top deck mode, and you
Oh,
like
I feel so bad, brother.
Yeah, you have 2 or 3 cards in hand, and you're like, my chances are good. And it's like, no, they're not. You're going to discard the thing you need. No, Gamble, I've cut it from so many lists lately. It used to be an auto include. One red.
We're getting more tutors, especially because you play non-black decks most of the time.
Right.
So you're getting more tutors in your colors.
Totally.
Which is also great.
Yeah, and I mostly play like if I'm playing red, I'm usually including green. Like that's
your vibe.
Yep.
That's what you do.
So Invasion of Ikoria comes in, gets a creature straight to the battlefield.
Bingo bango.
Most of these strategies, most of these strategies are creature focused.
Yep.
So, Gamble is a really tough pill to swallow these days. It on turn 1, yes, there's a good chance it gets you a mana crypt or whatever. But
brother, it just feels fucking bad though, and like I hate relying on it. And I do this with like a lot of cards that are like staples. Is if it relies on me relying on
luck
or the table doing the right thing or the whatever X variable to happen, I just cut it immediately. I want cards I can rely on getting the value, even if it is slightly less value than like the ceiling of the card that is asking you to take the chance. I don't want to fucking deal with it.
You heard it here first, folks. Jordan only trusts himself.
I only trust myself to play the game because I'm smarter than better than everybody else. Of course, obviously. Not.
Do you want to? That's on record.
That's not actually true. I don't feel that way.
Okay.
But yeah, bro. Like I think that obviously, Red Rakdos deck's never going to cut it. Most Grixis decks are never going to cut it. I play Grixis and I cut it because like we have black, right? Like, have you guys not seen how good the fucking tutors are in black? They're crazy. They're crazy good.
Yeah.
Like all of them are better than Gamble. So like in my head, it's almost like I would start considering it in non-black decks.
It's sorcery speed too. So it's like if this were, I mean, it would be really great at an instant, but if it were instant speed, that's when I would start considering it again, even though there is the risk to it.
Well, we've also been having the conversation separately of like, maybe we can do a little few less tutors in the deck. Like we're just trying to up the card quality enough to where, you know, those top decks in the mid game really do make a difference. And like sometimes just having 3 tutors in hand and not that much mana because stacks is out or whatever, just ain't it.
Right. So I think that is sort of like is a great like start to like my core and why I'm ready to move on from Gamble.
Yeah.
Is because the redundancy for tutors in all of the decks that I play, like you're right, we end up with multiple tutors in our hands throughout the course of the game. And while that does like provide us limitless potential for what we could go search for, it's like I would rather just have the card that I need in my hand rather than the tutor that, you know, barring whether or not it gets countered, or I get Oppo Agent in. Like I've gotten shut out of so many games because I'm sitting there with like 2 tutors in my hand or an Eldritch Evolution or something.
It's because Oppo Agent's super fucking good right now.
It's really, really good.
Everybody likes to tutor the decks apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. At the highest power of the game. Yes, of
10
course.
10 tutors in every deck.
So like, yes, I was on Academy Rector for a while and I've taken that out of Shalai and Halar, and because I did have tutors for the win conditions with Shalai and Halar already.
Right.
So like
you're off the food chain.
Yeah, I'm off food chain, so I was using it to like tutor Heliod, and I'm like, well, am I just literally including Altar of Bone in here for Academy Rector? And yeah.
100%.
Like Eldritch Evolution is good enough on its own.
Yep.
And Collateral Damage was used as an instant speed sack for Academy Rector. So now that I'm not on those lines, it's like, great. I just had like 4 slots open up.
It's pretty huge when that happens.
Deck. So now I'm really confused on what the deck looks like.
Right.
You know, it's like the core is still there, I guess, but how do I make the deck better? And by cutting Gamble, I feel like I have made the deck better.
Yeah, I feel that. And you said it before, it's just like, yeah, sure, the turn 1, great, go get a mana crypt, your odds are pretty fucking good. But like you said, every other tutor you have in your hand, and like when you're top decking in the late game and stuff like that, you don't want to see that Gamble. You don't want to see 2 cards in hand top deck Gamble, where like 2 cards in hand top deck Eladamri's Call, top deck, you know, Enlightened Tutor.
Yeah.
You know? But at the same time, those are also great turn 1, turn 2.
And there are like little niche moments where Gamble is amazing.
Totally. Underworld Breach.
Yeah. Underworld Breach. It's like, great. Okay. It doesn't matter. I have no cards in my hand. I'll Gamble, throw whatever I need into the graveyard. Like, sweet. Right. Done.
My greatest fear, however, is using Gamble to tutor for Underworld Breach. I refuse to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's my only grave recursion in my Grixis list usually.
Yeah. That says a lot too. It's just like, if you're tutoring and you need Underworld Breach to win the game, you are putting it in the hands of God.
Literally. And that's
determine
100%. That's all you need to say for it to be out of my deck immediately.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fucking next.
All right. That's that captures all of my feelings on Gamble. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll bring up a card, and I think it's another card that we value highly because it's a good turn 1 and not great later. And that's Gitaxian Probe.
Yes.
I get there's some upsides before everybody fucking freaks out and shits their pants.
Dude!
Like, yes, seeing if a single player has interaction or win condition or X, Y, Z in their hand is great. I get it. Telepathy is, I guess, a valuable card, sure.
Revelation.
And cantripping, I guess, for 2 life is pretty cool. I won't begrudge you that. You know, I saw the Kess player in the tournament. You know, he imp sealed and then paid 2 life and then essentially demonic tutored for 1 mana.
Right.
Like, that's hot. That's cool. Yeah, sure. But it's just like, we're all having a hard time finding slots in our deck these days, right? We have like 98 to 99 cards. And there are some really cool, really good cards coming out every day. So we have to really ask ourselves, like, we've been playing Gitaxian Probe for like 7 years at this point. Is it still top 99 worthy? Like, is it...
If you're in blue?
If you're in blue, yeah. I mean, like, is it top 99 worthy? I guess is my question. And, like, you know, for me, it's not. I would rather play cards that are more impactful. And there's plenty of more cards at 1 mana that are more impactful.
Yeah, the only reason that I would consider playing it, because I'm a totally different style of blue player, is if, one, it helps stimulate the overall strategy of the deck, because, you know, card quality density is kind of my focus, like when I'm building a deck or when I'm at least refining the strategy. And like when I'm playing it, I have it in Xeris, which is an amazing deck. And if you haven't played against it, saddle up, because I'm going to take you for a ride. You can join me on the cEDH Discord on Thursday nights, playing in the lounge.
Yo.
And you can see that deck live.
Solid plug.
Thank you. But I have built it to be basically just hyper-focused towards getting Song of Creation out.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Storm?
Yeah.
If we're talking Storm, yeah, it's a different story.
Right. So it does have its, like, same with Gamble. It has its niche moments where it's, like, really great when you're playing Kitten, right? It's 2 life to get a Kitten trigger.
Yeah. We're talking, are these cards, like, staple worthy of, like, the list that we all, you know, hold holy? Yeah. Like, sure, yeah, there are a lot of scenarios where, like, your strategy just warrants a completely different card set. But we're talking, like, just you look at the most disgusting inbred 5-color deck, right? And it's like what that list is, you know, that's what we're questioning. Like those cards, like Gitaxian Probe in that deck.
There's part of me that would rather play like Allosaurus Shepherd or something that just makes sure that something isn't going to be countered, like a permanent that stays on the field, rather than playing this. You know, it's like great to get a look and get insight, but you're not seeing the whole table's hands. You know, it's like you're seeing one player's hands and you're risking it all, basically just your judgment. You're making a judgment call based on the cards you see in one player's hand. Where like if I put something down that just says, you know, green spells you control cannot be countered, or spells you control, or I would rather play silence. I would rather
Bingo. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Where
100%.
I would rather just throw silence out at my upkeep.
Yes, sir.
And just be like, okay.
Like, oh, you already have Allosaurus Shepherd and silence in your deck? Then don't put that fucking card in your deck. Put a better card in your deck.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Something that either is more explosive in its like intention, where it like helps your strategy, or provides better card draw.
Yeah. Synergy, or just a better, higher value card piece.
Speaking of having silence in your deck, you're in white, you could play Archivist of Ogma.
Bingo, bango. It could and should be.
Yeah. Okay. So this is turning out to be an Archivist of Ogma Braze episode.
Yeah. I stand Archivist 100%.
I did buy those 2 borderless foils, which are still sitting in my room.
See, Poppy, how much are those now?
I have no idea. Probably not nearly as much as I paid for them.
That's true. I think they dropped. Go buy them now.
Yeah. There you go. It's a rising card. The MoxStars are talking about it.
Not financial advice.
Good plug.
Gotta say it. All right. What else you got?
I have a few cards that are spicy, because they definitely are staples in certain decks. But I think I'm ready to say thank you next to Jeska's Will.
Dude, you are speaking my language today. Obviously we did not prepare together, and I did not listen to half your list.
I have private sticky notes.
Yeah, these are fun little surprises for me.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think, again, it's going to be the thing where it's like, in the deck it's great in, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But it is not in every single red deck in cEDH. Like, or it should not be.
No.
I already cut it. I've cut it from multiple lists lately.
While it's great to have like your strategy revolve around your commander and to get like the peak, like to get the most value you can get out of this, you need to control your commander. But a lot of commanders that can and should be playing this card are the ones that don't fucking care if like it benefits from it. You know, like you're playing Rogue Rack, right? Mm-hmm. You're playing this.
You're always getting it.
Yeah. You know, it's like you're playing Tymna, something, you know, Blue Farm or whatever. You can probably play it because you're probably going to control Tymna and it just gives you more access to cards. You're playing Prosper. Great. I'm playing this because
100%.
Yeah. You know, or now if you're playing Ob Nixilis, I'm probably playing this.
I'd probably play it.
Yeah.
But that's also, you know, your 2-color, your card, your available card pool of high card quality or have high quality cards is much lower.
Yeah, your density goes down because you lose access to things like Rhystic Study or whatever.
Correct. You have to, you have to make exceptions. Yeah, bro, but it's like, what are we using? Like, yeah, you got 7 red mana. Great job. What are you going to spend that 7 red mana on? Like, sometimes you just got the nuts and you exile, I don't know, a Final Fortune or whatever.
Yeah, you know, the hope is that you hit something you can cast.
Or yeah, a bunch of colorless spells. And I've had some sick ass Jessica's Will. I won't say I haven't, but it's just like I've also had a lot of really shitty Jessica's Wills where you just exile 3 cards that you want later and it ain't coming back.
Yeah.
And guess what? They all have blue and black and whatever pips that are not red.
Yeah, and you know, later in the game, you're looking at it, and while early in the game, yes, it's great because you can just generate 7 red mana, and for decks like anything that includes Dargo, it's great, right? Early in the game, you get the Jessica's Will off, you're probably getting Dargo on turn 1. But outside of that, you get to turn 6, 7, or whatever. Nobody has 7 cards in hand, and if they do, it's because they have a Necropotence, and that's a very circumstantial thing you're relying on.
Yeah, so, it's so sad.
Yeah, oftentimes I have not played it to as much success as you have. So like I just am like stuck with these memories of getting 4 mana off of it. You know, it's like
100%.
I profit 1 and I'm like, great, I should have just played Seething Song and moved on with my life.
Literally though. And because like we're always like looking at it of like the ceiling of you hit 3 sick ass cards and you get 7 red mana. But a lot of times your commander's not out because Drannith Magistrate is in every fucking deck. And then it's just like, okay, pay 3 mana, exile the top 3 cards of your library. That's what you just did at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
Like, that feels fucking terrible.
Yeah, and you can build around like other decks and just play like effects that make your opponents lose 1 life, and then you might as well be playing like Light Up the Stage because it just gives you for 1 mana, you know, like 2 cards, which is just a better rate in general.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it just quickly this card starts falling apart once you start not putting it in like the holy light, you know, that of like what it could do.
I think a lot of players see the game like that though. They see it
100%.
with rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
So
and I'm right here to smack you back to reality, folks.
Take them glasses off.
It looked terrible on you.
While at one point it was expensive and it was wonderful for the format, it was a really great card. I just don't see, now that we've seen the way the game has developed and how I don't know, metas have shifted, this doesn't feel as good as it used to be.
To me, this is like Rakdos. This is it. You know, these kind of decks. I just don't think it's like a generic red deck.
Krakashima loves this,
yeah,
right?
It 100%.
It nets infinite mana.
Jerks off with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Gives you access to your whole library.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it literally does everything you could ever want.
Yep.
But it's like, it's one of those things. Like, sure, yeah, there's a specific build around where it just pops off, but I don't know. It doesn't go in every deck.
Nope.
Take it off the staples list. Thank you, next.
Thank you, next. All right, let's see a few other ones that I have. You know, there are cards that have gotten reprints, and this is like sort of like where we began the discussion, that they've gotten reprints and their value has just tanked, where you can go on Card Kingdom or you can go on TCG Player and pick these up for like 50 cents, like Traverse the Outlands being one of them. It was an $18 5-mana ramp spell in green that was just, you know, after I got the reprint in Baldur's Gate, people were just like, oh, so this is dog shit right now. It's not even good at all.
I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, it's search your library for X basic lands where X is the greatest power amongst creatures you control for 5 mana. So sometimes, you know, like in the casual game, people thought it was really great.
It's a terrible card.
But it's awful, right?
It's a terrible card.
Yeah, once it got reprinted, it really shed a really crazy light on it.
Shame on you guys.
I'm sitting on 4 borderless foils that I spent $2 a piece on.
Ouch.
Thinking like, you know, I'll get my money back. Nope. Actually, no. For $2 a piece, I did not. I lost money.
Disgusting.
So, Vidalcan Ori is another card. I think it's been dead for a while, but it's another one of those that got a reprint and is now less than $5.
Yeah, it is insane. Like how much of like I would call it like the OG card pool. You know, like it was already around 5 years ago. You know, stuff like that. And like that's not necessarily a huge cEDH card, but like the second a reprint comes out, these cards just never reach even close to what they used to be.
Exploration, another card.
Yeah.
Got a reprint.
Tanked.
There's another card that's waiting for a meaningful reprint, and so if you have any copies of Burgeoning, sell it.
How much is that going for?
It's like $18 to $20.
Damn.
So like the thing is that it hasn't had a meaningful reprint. So
I got a Japanese Burgeoning. Hit me up. $75.
I have a few of those Secret Lair ones. If you want them, just hit me up. I also have 4 borderless foil Traverse the Outland.
$75.
But the next card that I really want to bring up is Birthing Pod.
Birthing Pod. This is spicy.
This is spicy because it basically, if you're building your deck properly, one Birthing Pod activation means you're going for Kiki Jiki and you win the game.
One activation, you win.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where could we go wrong?
Yeah, well, I'll just say straight up, since we're calling out the whole line a little bit, I've never been a big fan of these kind of lines because of the card quality you have to put in your deck. You know, that's a big thing we talk about all the time is you have to put tons of specific cards that you tutor out that you can just draw throughout the game, and that kind of makes a lot of issues. Same thing with Hulk piles, you know, like I don't like Hulk piles or Hulk decks rather, that put a ton of piles in their list, you know, where it's just like, you know, I have 7 to 8 different cards I can grab, and it's like, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, right. Where you're just like, well, what if you pick one up?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
you will.
Yeah.
You definitely will.
The odds are stacked against you, my friend.
Right. I don't want to just be the guy who like, okay, I have Hulk and I have like all 5 of 1/2 of the A's and to my B's, you know, and like,
yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
You pick up one Felidar Guardian and oops.
Yeah.
Like the whole strategy for that, you know, next time, you know, and then you pick up Birthing Pod next, and you're just like, God, could my day get much worse?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's like I play Divergent Transformations, and then my first fucking draw is like one of my 2 creatures I need to go, and I'm like, well, I just lost that game. That's great.
Yeah. Which is, you know, the fragility of those.
100%. Yeah. And that's the only type of deck. I play one of those, and I accept my fate when I do that. Granted, you know, when you're playing these like Birthing Pod lines, a lot of times you have alternative win conditions and stuff like that. I am definitely cooling on it though, for sure. I think we're moving on. I barely see it. I don't see it in tournaments much at all. And you know, I think part of it we were talking is like the prevalence of stacks. It's literally in every deck. Like value stacks is a thing. You know, any deck with white, any 5-color deck can scramble for 1 generic and a white for a Drannith Magistrate, 1 and a green for a Collector Oof if they're not on rocks.
I mean, Graph Digger's Cage is becoming more prevalent.
100%. You know, Containment Priest is becoming more prevalent. So all these little pieces, Lavinia is becoming more prevalent, you know, so all of these little pieces that are just really going to fuck your day up, you know, like that they just play generically, I want to say, like just as value stack pieces. I got room for that slot. I'll put that right there. And then it's just like, that just ruins your whole deck. That's over now.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yep. Yeah. And you're just sitting there and you're like, well, I'm kind of turbo, you know, like I'm turbo oriented. And the thing about Cash Cards Unlimited, the most recent tournament, which shout out the Teferi player won again.
Yo, yeah, we got to talk about this with Chris on next week.
Yeah,
this
totally.
is absolutely baffling to me that this happened.
But I was looking through the top 16 lists, and I noticed that there was 1 or 2 stacks list amongst the top 16, but there was only 1 Rocco list, and they were playing Birthing Pod. And I just think that's such a risky line to walk because of how flexible Rocco can actually be.
Totally. I feel like it. Well,
you know, Rocco literally is 3 mana, so it does like translate into Felidar Guardian, into Kiki Jiki, and then the line is just set.
It is the smoothest pod deck,
right?
But it's also, it can play that, I think, because it has a lot of alternatives. You know, a lot of them play the Vivian lines too that do the same thing, but then there's also just lots of alternatives outside of that. They just have ways to fucking win with that deck all of the time.
Yeah, and it almost feels like you could have, like that player, maybe they did win with Birthing Pod at one point, but like it does feel like you could have slotted that out, or someone could slot that out in place of something that's going to get you closer or refine that Vivian line or, something like that.
Like, are you seeing oofs at every table? Yeah, easy. Just slot it out.
Right. Put in, something to kill the oof or like some sort of like removal.
Yeah.
I think that's also something that people aren't playing enough of for these decks to like help. Maybe these cards would actually, some of them would be better had people just slotted in more single target removal. Right?
So are you saying that this is the thank you next card, or are we just saying thank you?
Oh man, I don't know.
We got our eyes on you.
Yeah, I think our eyes are on this one. That I'm ready. Like
they've been on Sylvan Library for a while.
Yeah, it's just like ready. You got to be able to pull the trigger on it.
I already pulled the trigger on Sylvan Library. It's dead.
Yeah, it's dead to you.
It's dead to everybody.
It's not dead to me yet. I mean, it is. It's
you just
very,
need to accept fate.
Yeah, I'm just holding this like
just play Archivist of Ogma, bro. You're fine.
Rotting corpse of Sylvan Library in my arms.
Yeah,
sobbing.
Your $60 Sylvan Library that now costs $15.
Yeah, you ever play The Last of Us?
Yeah,
Joel and his.
Of course, yeah.
That's
spoiler alert.
Yeah,
from 2008.
I didn't spoil anything. I didn't say anything. It's just
and his daughter, bro. Come on,
we were talking, so people didn't hear that part. Now, so you
jeez.
just spoiled it.
We should probably wrap this up.
Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty surprised at how long we were able to talk. Time out.
We were really good at talking for a long time.
I got one more. And this is one that is either underrated or overrated. We're not saying thank you next to it because it has yet to see the true spotlight.
We're switching up the whole paradigm on the last one. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But it's because some people have said thank you next to it.
Okay.
I don't feel like it has been given a proper light.
And
Mangara the Diplomat.
I agree. I just don't think it's never been in the light to have been like moved on from.
Right.
And it's underrated.
But it's been out for so long that no one has stumbled on it. No one has like put it in as a general piece of value. Maybe just because it's 4 mana. Like, I don't know.
Well, maybe we should start talking, have a whole different episode about underrated cards because now I was just about to start naming 6 other cards
that have not gotten their time in the light.
Yeah. But I will say on that, I think Mangara's fucking lit, dude. He's white Crom.
Yeah.
Like
that's
common white. Hello.
Potentially more too, because he's a 2/4 lifelink. That also, when someone attacks you with 2 or more creatures, you also draw a card.
Like that doesn't seem bad at all.
Yeah,
that seems pretty fucking good.
Does seem good.
Yeah, never see it. I've never seen it.
So thank you, Mangara, for being there, but never being noticed. You will get there.
Thank you, and you're next.
You're next.
Bingo.
Yes. And
bingo, bango.
Yeah, you have to be next in order for us to say thank you next, right?
Correct. So yeah, we'll put you on a pedestal. There. We'll get you the spotlight, and then we'll kick you out.
Like a true Magic player does.
Yeah.
Someone who grows with the game.
Like a pageant mom.
All right. That's enough for this episode, I think.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys for listening to the MoxStars podcast.
Yo.
If you would like to support the show, you can find our link tree in the description below. It's a nifty little tool. It'll show you all of our social media platforms. And you can also find us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, and hit that bell for more notifications. Get the, for when new episodes come out, when you get to listen to us talk about Magic.
You know you love listening to us talk. And Chris will be here next time.
Yeah. Or you can find us on most podcast platforms. And you can find us by searching MoxStars MTG. And if you do follow us on there, be sure to rate the podcast with a big old 5 stars.
Ayo. Come say hi on the Discord. And gameplay videos coming soon.
Peace.
Spoiler alert.